Before I turn things over to the Premier, please make sure to mute your microphones. Avant de tourner les choses à la Première ministre.
Before speaking, or before starting, make sure that your mics are disactivated. Thank you and welcome to all. Thank you for being here for our first update, a monthly update. We decided to create two different options for this monthly discussion with the New Brunswickers and the media. This is an update that is focused on access for the media. There will also be a second monthly event with questions and answers with New Brunswickers. It's for the 10th of June, rather the 10th of July at 10 a.m. There will be ads and a promotion to allow to provide you with information as to where to go on which website, and suggested topics. At 9:59 we'll stop the voting, and at 10 a.m. I'll start answering the questions, the most popular questions that were asked during that format. We'll try it in that way to try and do it every month. The schedule will be different every month. We'll start at 10 a.m. with the first one, but we'll probably have another one at night, maybe at lunchtime. We'll try and find the best way to ensure the most engagement and to ensure that you're aware of all the work that we're doing.
And welcome to the first of this revised monthly address formats. We have decided to move forward with two versions of a monthly engagement for New Brunswickers. This one is going to be a monthly opportunity to engage with the media, to provide an update on our work and take any and all of their questions. And then we're going to have a second monthly engagement opportunity with New Brunswickers that will be a live online Q&A session, and that's scheduled for July 10th at 10 a.m. And you will see some promotion coming out prior to that session, directing you to a website where New Brunswickers can enter the questions that they have for myself and our team. You can vote on the questions that have been submitted, the ones that were the question that you were going to ask yourself, and so that we can make sure that we're attending to the questions that have the most interest first, and then we'll turn off the submissions and voting at 9:59 a.m. and at 10 a.m. I'll start answering the questions that have been most popular in an online format. We're going to move the time around a little bit, so we'll try 10 a.m., we'll try an evening time slot, maybe a midday time slot, in order to try to create the most accessible and engaging opportunities for New Brunswickers to ask their questions, get answers, and stay up to date on what's happening with the government. So looking forward to that. But this one today is our session for the media and to provide a bit of an update on all the things that have been happening here in New Brunswick. I want to start off by flagging an announcement that was made just the other day about bursaries for paramedics and the $6.5 million that the Minister of Health announced to provide bursaries to people who are studying to become paramedics or advanced care paramedics. I wanted to flag it because we have received so many messages from folks who have reached out to express interest, to express thanks, and so I just wanted to take the opportunity to say thank you to everyone who has engaged with my team members, with the minister. It's really helpful to us when you let us know what piece of it you're interested in, which program and which community, and how that might benefit your ability to get the training you need to join us in the care of New Brunswickers. Alors, je voulais prendre un moment juste pour faire...
I'd like to take this moment to highlight an announcement that we did earlier this week, $6.5 million for the program, a study program for paramedics in New Brunswick, an advanced care paramedic. We received so many messages, even for paramedics now, that were very enthused by this because it would allow them to welcome new colleagues, but also for those that would like to take care of New Brunswickers and that are interested in this program and know that now that they can have their courses paid for by the government thanks to this investment. Thank you for sharing those messages of encouragement, of interest with me, with the Minister, Dornan, and the Deputy Minister as well. We always appreciate your messages, positive, negative, your suggestions. If you support what we're doing, if you have suggestions as to how we can improve what we are doing or offering, I just wanted to recognize that participation.
Canada-U.S. relations topic, because it continues to be a busy front in terms of the work that I spend time doing. This week, New Brunswick hosted the Southeastern U.S. and Canadian Provinces Conference for 2025. So this is a conference that's been happening for, I think, more than 16 years. There's been 16 instances of the conference going back a long ways, and it rotates between South and Eastern states and Eastern Canadian provinces. So this year was New Brunswick's turn to host, and the team at Opportunities New Brunswick did a fantastic job of attracting the largest number of delegates and business delegates that the conference has seen to date. So they set records for participation. We were really pleased by the delegations that came to see us from the southeastern United States. I had some great meetings with Governor Kemp, with Secretary of State Marshall from North Carolina, with representatives from Tennessee and Mississippi and Alabama and South Carolina, which will be hosting SUCP next year, and particularly the Canadian Consul General, Rosalind Kwan, who's the Consul General to the Southeast United States, was there as well, and it was great to get the chance to connect with her and be able to voice directly our concern about the tariffs that are in place right now, to engage the Southeastern leaders in the fight against tariffs, and to emphasize the opportunities for those states to invest in New Brunswick and to grow their investments here. I think the team tells me that the conference saw 1,100 business-to-business meetings, so demonstrates the interconnectedness of our economies and the importance of having strong trade relations that support jobs for New Brunswickers and markets that we export our products into. And so we want to make sure that we're continuing to support those jobs and those industries. And the team at Opportunities New Brunswick did an excellent job pulling off the best SUCP yet. Alors, je veux féliciter.
I'd like to congratulate the team of Opportunity New Brunswick for an excellent conference for this conference on the Canadian provinces and the southeastern states. We spoke about tariffs, spoke about stronger voices to criticize those tariffs. We asked them to speak more strongly out against these tariffs that have been imposed on businesses in New Brunswick. And we are looking forward for all of the positive outcomes after these meetings, with the meetings that we had with the different provinces, with Quebec, Ontario, and with the southeastern states.
In terms of American-Canadian relations, or New Brunswick and neighboring states' relations, is an engagement with the New England governors and Eastern Canadian premiers that's happening in Boston on Monday. So I will be heading down along with my colleagues from Ontario and Quebec and Nova Scotia and PEI and Newfoundland to engage with the governors of the New England states and to continue to have conversations about both the fight against tariffs as well as about critical files like energy, where we're integrated and do a lot of work together. So we're going to continue to try to build and manage the trade partnerships that matter to New Brunswickers and to New Brunswickers' jobs, to continue to make sure that our goods are being purchased by the U.S. And that we continue to have access to what we need to grow our economy here while we recruit more allies in the fight against tariffs. Alors,
New Brunswick will go to Boston for a conference with governors from New England and Eastern Canadian premiers, Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, and PEI. We will get together on Monday in Boston to continue speaking about the fight against tariffs and to speak about energy, because it's a file where there's much integration between our economies. We're going to continue to protect our economy and to increase opportunities that we have for jobs here in New Brunswick, and to continue to sell the products that we create here. and we want to recruit more allies in this fight against tariffs.
But we'll now move it into Canada. I want to talk a little bit about internal trade. New Brunswick announced today that we have removed another 5 party-specific exceptions from the Canadian Free Trade Agreement under the procurement chapter. So this is on Atlantic Lottery Corporation, wastewater commissions, the regional service commissions, the Fredericton Area Pollution Control, Greater Moncton Sewerage Commission, as well as newly created entities like Crown corporations. So that's in addition to the 10 exceptions that we removed in March. And we are committed to continuing to review all of the party-specific exceptions and to tear them down to remove trade barriers within Canada. Nous sommes vraiment engagés à réagir.
We're committed to looking to study all of the ESPs here, or the PSEs here in New Brunswick. That's why I'm very proud that we eliminated another 5 party-specific exceptions. We eliminated another 5 New Brunswick party-specific exemptions from the Canadian Free Trade Agreement. That is in addition to 10 that we already eliminated in March. We removed half of them, but we're continuing to work on eliminating others for internal trade within the country. There were 2 bills that I'd like to highlight that received royal assent, because they're very important bills. The first is on labor mobility, allowing anyone, and it's starting now because it received royal assent, everyone that is a regulated profession title can anywhere in Canada can come and work in New Brunswick from the first day that they arrive here. That's something that's very important. We're seeing that other provinces have more difficulty with that access to the labor force, but we removed that barrier. You can come and work here starting from day one with your diplomas, your certificates from other territories and provinces in Canada. And there's also the bill on the Liquor Control Act that removed personal exemptions. So we're continuing our conversation and the work with other provinces so that they can also mutually recognize direct-to-consumer sales. We see a lot of positive progress on this file.
Important pieces of legislation that received royal assent last week, and that was our bill on labor mobility. That means that if you have a Canadian credential from another part of the country, you can be recognized to work immediately upon arrival in New Brunswick day one. No pauses, no breaks. If it's good enough for PEI or Manitoba, it is good enough for New Brunswick. We want to make sure that we have access to the Canadian talent that we need to continue to grow our economy and serve New Brunswickers. And so we're excited that that's received royal assent, and that removes barriers to labor. We know some other provinces have some sticking points on that front, but New Brunswick and the team here in government and post-secondary education training and labor did a great job engaging with the registrars and others to develop a solution that works for workers day one upon arrival in New Brunswick, and will address some of the barriers to free labor mobility across our province and the country. And then we also advanced the changes to the Liquor Control Act that allow for the removal of personal exemptions and the framework for direct-to-consumer purchases of alcohol that are mutually recognized with other provinces. So now we're doing the work of making sure the other provinces are moving along on their direct-to-consumer legislation so that we can have the movement of great New Brunswick spirits to places like Ontario and beyond, and vice versa. Okay, second to last subject on my list, and that is nation-building projects. There's been a lot of conversation over the last couple weeks since our first ministers' meeting in Saskatoon about the kind of nation-building projects that Canada is going to undertake and the role that New Brunswick is playing in those. So we were really pleased to see the Prime Minister identify the Eastern Energy Partnership as one of the first 5 nation-building projects that he mentioned. And we were also really excited to see New Brunswick's priority priorities featured in the other three as they talked about pathways to critical minerals, next generation nuclear, and trade diversification infrastructure. So there's lots of pieces there that New Brunswick put forward as priorities to develop our ports and their connections through Canada and to the world, as well as developing our minerals responsibly for New Brunswickers and Canada's benefit, and of course the conversation that we've been having about the future of nuclear in New Brunswick. Alors, c'était vraiment
It was really encouraging to discuss about those projects. We are working relentlessly to make sure that this Eastern Energy Partnership will go forward so that we can have results faster. We had the support of the Prime Minister for New Brunswick. It was encouraging to see that we also are in 4 and 5 nation building projects. We're happy to see that New Brunswick is recognized as a leader in this nation building projects, and we are here to help with the development of the Canadian economy, and especially with the energy partnerships. We will be a superpower when it comes to energy, and New Brunswick is here to participate and to help make New Brunswick important for Canada.
Ports that are already moving goods from St. John to Saskatchewan to Vancouver, the work that they've been doing up at the Port of Belledune to build relationships into Europe with their sister ports, that's going to allow for many more ships to come through there and help us move goods and ensure that Canada's trade is diversified across the world in ways that benefit New Brunswickers and New Brunswick businesses. I think that's it. And then the last one to update that is related to that was the more recent announcement that the Prime Minister made on NATO spending and his intention to ensure that Canada meets their 2% of GDP commitment to spending on defense very quickly. Gesundheit. So we are eager to see that commitment because here in New Brunswick, we train Canada's military, and we heard the Prime Minister say that they need to grow their military. And so that means investment in Base Gagetown and investment in New Brunswick and the contractors that support our defense sector with both more modernized training tools and technologies and initiatives, a more modernized base in terms of its infrastructure, and lots of opportunity to refresh and to reposition Base Gagetown at a critical time in Canada's defense landscape as well as the world's. Alors nous saluons les mesures.
We are very happy to announce the federal government commitments when it comes to improve the military spending. It's 2% GDP. We are one of the most important places in Canada to train the military, so they will invest further in Gagetown, in the technology, in the partnership. There are many contractors who support the defense sector here in New Brunswick, so we are looking forward to receiving this federal investment in our province. It's a great opportunity for New Brunswick, and we are here happy and ready to grab the opportunity with the federal government.
It's increased defense spending and how that's going to benefit not just Base Gagetown, but all of New Brunswick. I think those were the key points that I wanted to highlight in my update. Alors, je vais passer la parole.
I will now give you the floor to ask me questions.
Proceed with questions from members of the media. Each member will be allowed one question and one follow-up. You have the right to pose your question in the official language of your choice. Nous allons mettre...
We'll now proceed to receive questions from the journalists. They're allowed to ask one question, one follow-up question. You're allowed to ask the question in the language of your choice.
CBC.
Hello. The Higgs government had the NB First Action Plan, which promoted exemptions to internal trade agreements and had a NB preferences to favor local suppliers. Is that strategy gone now? Is it a thing of the past? Is it dead?
Well, I would say two things. I think the opportunity for New Brunswick businesses to increase the trade they do with other provinces is in front of us. And one of the ways that we get better access to compete in other markets is by making sure that some of those preferential treatments are removed from the CFTA. And then we have to find other ways to support New Brunswick businesses to be successful. And I'll give you a small example because it's one that I'm pretty excited about. When we went down to Washington, the team from Opportunities New Brunswick met with the folks at Walmart and learned a bit more about the Walmart procurement process, and learned that Walmart has sort of a pitch competition that they do regularly to get your product onto Walmart's shelves. And so the team at ONB learned more about that process, understood how it worked, came back and reached out to the New Brunswick business community to say, who's interested in being on Walmart's shelves? Is anybody, we're going to engage with you to help you be successful in this pitch competition. 14 companies went through the process and got that training. 7 companies made the cut into the competition. 7 from New Brunswick, which is almost as many as Alberta companies. So because of the work that we did to make sure New Brunswick companies were ready to compete, we outmatched Alberta's performance in the shortlisting of Walmart suppliers. So there's things that we can do to make sure that New Brunswickers are competing and winning, both here locally and across Canada and around the world, in ways that still allow for free and fair and open trade and competition across Canada.
Secondly, on nuclear. So for almost a decade, we were hearing that SMRs were the way to go because they were easier, cheaper to build, less risk of cost overruns. And now CANDU seems to be back in the discussion, a CANDU 2. So, and this is at a time when NB Power is itself going through a review about what direction to take. So how real is this CANDU 2 possibility? And what is the gamble in terms of cost overruns given the utilities' fiscal situation?
Yeah, you're right that the two conversations kind of link together, right? We know that we need more generation of electricity in Atlantic Canada. PEI, in particular, is looking for more generation. Quebec is looking for more generation. Lots of jurisdictions are trying to find ways to bring new projects online, including New Brunswick, who had put out the REOI for renewable and partnered generation, and have moved forward with a number of different wind projects that are being developed. But nuclear is a great partner to wind because you can have strong intermittent renewable resources, and then you need that base load that delivers reliable, low-cost energy to New Brunswickers. And we know right now that the energy we get from Point Lepreau is the cheapest energy that we sell to New Brunswickers. And so we want to make sure that we can continue to achieve that affordability mandate that the utility has. And so we're looking now at all forms of nuclear because there was a time when that second nuclear was a project on the table and a site was prepared for it and the evaluations were done. Nuclear has come a long way since then, and certainly the team at CANDU have been investing in their next generation reactors. We're seeing other provinces looking at putting those orders in and expanding that production. So it's a time when we might be able to get some of the benefits of scale as that production increases. So it's changed the financial picture a little bit for what a next full reactor might cost at a time when the SMR technology development path has been it hasn't gone to the timeline that maybe people anticipated 10 years ago when they were excited about how quickly this technology could come online. And so we're looking at all options. The NB Power Comprehensive Review is going to be talking to New Brunswickers about how they feel about the type of energy that's generated and the generation technology used so that we can understand from New Brunswickers how they feel about solar and wind and nuclear and biomass and hydrogen and hydro and coal and other options at the same time as we look at who might want to partner with us in nuclear generation, how does that increased generation capacity serve New Brunswickers and our interests in the U.S. and the interests with our neighboring jurisdictions, which is most viable, which is most timely. It's not an either or. There's certainly a case for SMRs that folks have been making. We've been watching Ontario, some other jurisdictions make some of those decisions as well. I think there's a case for full next stage nuclear as well. And it's just figuring out which one has the best financial case, is going to meet our needs at a time when demand for energy is increasing rapidly, and we have a financial situation at NB Power that needs to be addressed. So there's all of these pieces sort of moving in tandem with the comprehensive review, with the evaluation of generation technologies, with the conversation with partners like the federal government, Canada Infrastructure Bank, that want to be involved in projects like this. So they're moving at the same time, but you're right that CANDU 2 and a full nuclear reactor or large-scale reactor is back on the table and being considered.
Alexandre Boudreau,
Could have
Acte
just said
Nouvelle.
that first, hey? Sorry.
Bonjour.
Hello. You've removed 5 exemptions with the Canadian Free Trade Agreement. I heard you mention exemptions with the Crown corporations. You said it was excluded, we will keep them. But this is what you're removing now. I would like to understand why. Is it the federal government who made pressure? What is the impact on removing these exemptions? We're not removing it. I can clarify maybe the exemptions that we're removing now are exemptions related to the procurement chapter with the Crown corporations. What's not on the table is that we're not opening the retail of alcohol for the public. We are continuing with the same ways we did business with the Crown corporations. So we're not removing the Crown corporations, but the regulations related to the procurement are changing because we allow the Crown corporations to have their own method to establish their procurement, and that's what we're moving now. Just to clarify, it's for the procurement of the Crown Corporation, so they will be able to find supplies outside of New Brunswick. They're not forced to have their procurement inside New Brunswick. Yes, exactly. Another question. In the Higgs government, we had discussions about Pointe-le-Pro. We talked about the ownership. Is it still on the table, the construction of a second reactor? Will there be a main ownership in New Brunswick? Yes, we're looking at all opportunities to develop solutions to generate energy, and who will have the ownership. Maybe it will be in partnership with PI, Nova Scotia, OPG might have other partners that might be interested. Now we're determining the best structure. We are trying to see what are the best interests of New Brunswickers with a project that we can finance and then that will deliver affordable energy for everyone. The conversations continue with the stakeholders, and I can say that the comprehensive review of NB Power will allow us to talk to New Brunswickers to know what they think about the possible solutions with Hydro-Quebec or other partnerships, potential other partnerships. Do New Brunswickers agree with us? Are they concerned? I want to understand their interests so that we can provide energy that is affordable, reliable for New Brunswickers.
Is everything on the table? Well, those are old conversations. I don't know who started the conversation with OPG, if it was them or us that started that conversation, because I wasn't there. All I know is that those discussions started and there was maybe a pause on them because they couldn't attain a certain objective at that time, so the pause was made. We're continuing to evaluate all of the possibilities, all of the partners, all of the options are on the table to see what is best for New Brunswickers.
CHCO TV, please unmute your mic.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Aiden.
Perfect. How will, after the the report that just was released recently on housing, how will you be securing permanent funding necessary for maintenance of public housing? Like, how are we going to be securing this permanently so 8-10 years down the line, people don't have to worry we're not going to be in the situation that we're in right now?
Yeah, I appreciate that question because certainly the Auditor General made quite visible what many people knew to be true, which is that the state of public housing in New Brunswick is very poor and needs addressing in ways that it hasn't been addressed for the last 30 years. So in terms of securing permanent funding, it's maybe the sad reality of politics is it's pretty difficult to put something in place that's going to last for 10 years when election cycles may change the leadership and thus the budgetary decisions, and it's pretty tough to lock in a financial commitment that's guaranteed for that kind of time frame. We are negotiating constantly with the federal government in order to support our housing projects and initiatives because the construction of new public housing is something we also need to do, and the federal government is keen to partner on that front as well as to support making sure that New Brunswickers have safe, quality, affordable places to call home. So I know that Minister Hickey has been an excellent advocate on this file and has already started advocating for more funds in next year's budget and to see those funds continue to reach the level necessary in order for us to maintain this housing in a way that any of us would be happy to live in and can live comfortably and in a dignified way with our families. So there's lots of work to do to try to get the funds and budgets up to a place where they can cover the maintenance required for our public housing.
Aiden, your follow-up?
And speaking with local Indigenous groups, they're kind of worried that the province might go down the same path as we've kind of seen in Ontario for these big nation-building projects. How have you started consultation with Indigenous groups in the province about nuclear or other mineral extraction in the province?
Yeah, so we've been talking with First Nations groups in the province for, certainly ever since the swearing in, but I'll say personally for the last number of years, engaging with communities both on their priorities, on the interests of their communities, their neighboring areas, and the province's resources. And specifically when it comes to mineral development, we reached out and identified the possibility to the chiefs a number of months ago, met with all of the chiefs to discuss the landscape for critical minerals in New Brunswick and the opportunities that were in front of us and have been engaging them in those conversations. And so on the nuclear front, more specifically, there's been some conversations with the communities certainly surrounding the current LaPro site in Lorneville and more work. We're constantly in conversation with First Nations leadership and communities here in New Brunswick, and so the mineral conversation has now been on the table for a number of months with them. And I was just talking with Chief Terry yesterday about opportunities for energy developments and partnerships for his community and others. So it's an ongoing and constant conversation.
Thank you. Hina Alon, Canadian
I should say
Press.
Chief Terry Richardson of Pabineau. Sorry, I should make sure it's clear for folks. Hina, did you say?
Hi, Premier.
Hi, Hina.
I was wondering about the June 16th meeting and with the New England premiers, New England governors, along with some of our premiers. Can you elaborate a little bit more about what you're going to be talking about when you say fight against tariffs and critical files like energy?
Yeah, this meeting has come, the New England governors and Eastern Canadian premiers is a group that has a chair and a regular cycle of meetings. And so the Eastern Canadian premiers will be going down to Boston to meet with this group of New England governors to talk about tariffs and our economic relationship, because we would like to continue to encourage them to work through their channels and their business leaders to make clear to the administration how tariffs are hurting Americans and Canadians. And the conversation about energy is one that they're very keen to have because, as you probably know, New Brunswick supplies a lot of energy products to New England. It's, I think, 90% of the cars in Boston are driving gas that comes from the Irving Oil Refinery and comes from us. Obviously, in Maine, we supply a good portion of their electricity. There's a two-way relationship with how some petroleum products move through pipelines in between New Brunswick and New England, and so they are also keen to make sure that we will continue to be a reliable supplier of energy products to them, which links up to one of the other conversations we just had, actually. We see the U.S. as a market to sell energy in a way that is profitable and beneficial to New Brunswick, and so that's another reason why we want to make sure we have the kind of generation that meets our needs, but also allows us to sell at a great rate to help continue to keep the price lower for New Brunswickers. So we're definitely engaged in those energy conversations about our security, our resilience, and the entire sort of network or a grid of players when it comes to the energy space in New England.
I also had a follow-up. One of the main points there is how the Premier is going to address the real problem, which is Donald Trump and his policies about the tariffs, about visitors, about everything else. How is that conversation going to be brought up and moved forward?
Well, we are always looking for insights from folks like the New England governors about the best ways to get the result that we're looking for out of the administration and the White House and the president. We know that Minister LeBlanc and Prime Minister Carney and Ambassador Hillman are working extremely hard to advance our interests and get the tariffs removed. Those conversations are active and moving along every day, and so we continue to engage with Dominic and Prime Minister Carney on the ways that the premiers can support that work and make sure that all the things that we're doing, whether it's with the governor of Georgia or the governor of New Hampshire or businesses in those states, to make clear how this is hurting, the microbreweries of North Carolina, how this is hurting the manufacturing sector in Georgia, and how we can get those messages through to the people that we hope can influence the president to move off of his 50% tariff on aluminum and his tariff on autos in Canada and land in a place where we have the kind of free and open trade that we've had before.
Thank you. John Chilbeck, Post Media.
I just wanted to pick up on a previous question about the New Brunswick First Action Plan that the Higgs government had put in place. You still have, after this latest round, you'll still have 17 exemptions on your list. So are any of those that remain include that First Action Plan? And also, I imagine the last 17 are the more difficult ones. Are there any in there that you see that you couldn't possibly remove? Could you speak to that a bit?
Only a bit, John, unfortunately. So I don't have the New Brunswick First Action Plan memorized, and I couldn't tell you what pieces of it are or aren't in the remaining 17 exceptions. So I can go and do that work, and we can do that comparison so that I can come back to you with it. I just, off the top of my head, don't have it in view of what things they specify there and how that impacts the work that we've been doing to get all of these exemptions off. So and similarly, I can't tell you of the 17. There's 2 that I think are the next that are ready to go, and there's 3 that I don't think we're ever going to be able to get rid of. So I can work with the team to get you a better level of detail on that. But I will say broadly, the sticky ones that we've talked about before in this room are resource related, right? It's the ability to cut crown wood and process it, and we have some of those minimum requirements on things like the crab fishery. And so where it's natural resources that are critical to New Brunswick's economy and identity, we're not yet sure whether we want to remove the requirements to process and add value to those primary products in our province.
The healthcare unions, the NBU and the nurses union, they want to have a retirement age of 60 we also have a shortage of nurses and healthcare workers. So is that something that you would consider off the table, or how do you feel about that?
Well, that's something that is on the table. It's a conversation that we've been having with the NBNU and the NBU for, well, ever since we came into power, because it's conversations that they'd even been having prior to our government with the previous government. So there's been some studying done of the impact of that kind of move. We've done an evaluation of what that looks like across the country and in other jurisdictions, what the retirement ages are for healthcare professionals. We have been, I think, made it very clear that we are interested in supporting our healthcare professionals, creating the kind of conditions that mean they're going to stay and be retained in their jobs and caring for New Brunswickers, and that are going to help us attract and recruit more. That's why we did the 2 rounds of retention bonuses. That's why we've been moving to get back to the table to negotiate the kind of working conditions and pay that we hear being asked for. It's why we're putting bursaries in place for paramedics. It's why we're engaging with the healthcare professionals on the transformation of primary care to provide them with the support and the technology. We need to improve healthcare in New Brunswick, and we have to do that by valuing our healthcare professionals. I'm not going to serve New Brunswickers directly. I do that through the nurses and the doctors and the nurse practitioners and the pharmacists and the paramedics and the physiotherapists that serve New Brunswickers. So we are actively in discussion with the NB Nurses Union and the NB Union about that contract, about the things that matter to their members and what we can do to make sure that their members are feeling valued and respected, stay in their jobs, and create the conditions for us to attract more people into that work.
Ali Chouinard, Radio-Canada.
Alors, on semble s'approcher d'une...
We seem to be getting closer to an agreement with the United States with the tariffs. What's your reaction to that answer? We're encouraged that the Prime Minister Carney, Minister LeBlanc, and Ambassador Hellman are working relentlessly to try and remove those tariffs. Everyone in New Brunswick would like to see us attain that objective. We're encouraged to see that the Prime Minister is making progress with these discussions, and we look forward to seeing continued progress up until we see no longer any tariffs imposed on New Brunswick in Canada. What's happening on the ground in New Brunswick with tariffs? Which sectors are most affected? Answer, the tariffs that are in place are those on steel, aluminum, and car vehicles, automobile vehicles. There are a number of businesses here that deal with aluminum, steel, Apex in Moncton, Ocean Steel in St. John. And there are others as well where cans, beer cans, those that are producing beer cans for local breweries, we see that the cost has increased drastically recently, and it's much more difficult for them to produce beer, and therefore it has an impact on those businesses.
Global News.
Hello, Premier Holt. Alberta and Saskatchewan say they're bringing back U.S. alcohol to their shelves. What's your stand on this? Follow suit with Alberta and Saskatchewan, or keep the U.S. alcohol off the shelf for now?
Yeah, we're keeping the U.S. alcohol off the shelves for now, with the exception of our agency stores, where we put the former inventory that we had sitting in warehouses has gone out to agency stores. But we have seen New Brunswickers starting to adopt local products in greater and greater numbers. That's great news for us in so many fronts. It's great for those producers and the jobs that they are generating here in New Brunswick. It gives them the kind of scale that'll help them move into new markets in other parts of Canada. So until the tariffs are off, we are not prepared to welcome back U.S. alcohol yet.
Awesome, thank you.
Avery McRae.
Afternoon, Premier. Just wanted to ask again about that trip coming up again on Monday. You talked about what you're going to hopefully accomplish there. Is there one thing on your list that if you can check off that box when you're hopping on the plane to come back home, you would deem the trip successful?
Oh, that's a great question, Avery. I mean, ideally, what we would get is every governor present and every governor represented under the New England governors, because that includes New Hampshire and some Republican states, agreeing to articulate in loud and formal terms their objection to the tariffs to their administration. That would be a win because we have some of those states that haven't yet come out in ways that support that position, and some of them that are influential. So if we can get everyone agreeing that the tariffs are negatively impacting Americans and passing that message on to the White House, that would be a win.
You were just asked as well about where New Brunswick stands when it comes to American booze, and you touched on the fact that New Brunswick brewers and companies are doing quite well right now. Maybe I'll ask on that point, what does this potentially mean for New Brunswick breweries going forward to see this boom that they're seeing and hopefully continues moving forward once everything, hopefully one day gets all sorted out again?
Yeah, well, the good news is it means growth. Where they're seeing more and more sales by New Brunswickers for their product, that gives them the chance to invest in more staff, to expand their capacity, and with that expanded capacity comes the opportunity potentially to do business in other places, because you sometimes need to be able to fill a truck. You know, you have to have the right amount of pallets to fill a truck to make it worthwhile to send it to Nova Scotia or Quebec or somewhere else. And so if you don't have that scale, then it doesn't make sense to send a partial load. But if the volume of purchase in New Brunswick by New Brunswickers for our incredible craft alcohol products is going up to the point where we're giving the producers that scale, they can then send loads into neighboring provinces and start to expand their own customer markets at the same time as we're opening up direct-to-consumer opportunities in other provinces. And so I think that I don't want to say that it's all sunshine and roses, because we do have those aluminum tariffs that are impacting the sector as well. But it is great to see the loyalty and the support that New Brunswickers have shown to our craft alcohol producers and how that increase is helping. So I'd encourage people to do that across the board, not just with craft alcohol. I feel like this is the same message I gave the first time I was in here, but New Brunswick food products, New Brunswick tourism destinations. We have incredible places to explore, and now is the time to do it. We have incredible agricultural and seafood products and craft products and others. So there's just never been a better time to buy New Brunswick. And see the benefit that has on our neighbors and our entrepreneurs, their employees, and our economy overall.
Alexander Johnson, All New Brunswick.
Good afternoon, Premier. To go back to the removal of free trade exemptions, I was just wondering if you could talk a bit more about how procurement has worked up until now with Atlantic Lottery Corporation and the other entities mentioned in today's release, and what you expect will change with these exemptions lifted.
Ooh, I can try, Alexander, but I'm not an expert on procurement at Atlantic Lotto or the other wastewater commissions and regional service commissions. The exceptions meant that they were allowed to prefer and to procure locally rather than competitively, as the broad intent of the Canada Free Trade Act was. So by removing the exception that allows them to provide local preference, that means that that their procurement will be open to competition from bidders from all over the place. How that will change the actual result in terms of who they do business with would remain to be seen, because New Brunswick has some phenomenal companies that supply regularly to Atlantic Lotto and others and win that business fair and square because of the quality of their product and the competitiveness of their pricing. And so I'm optimistic that we will see that the amount of New Brunswick content in those supply chains remains high, but I don't have the details on the specific levels of New Brunswick content in Atlantic Lotto's procurement. So maybe that's a nice project for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And to switch back to electricity, our neighbors in Nova Scotia are talking about a lot of potential for offshore wind. And I was wondering if you could talk to what your government's stance is on offshore wind development in New Brunswick.
Well, New Brunswick has a lot of wind assets, but as we assess them, we see a lot of wind assets in the north of the province, a lot of wind on the west of the province, and we tend to find that onshore wind projects can be developed more quickly and less expensively, and so that's the route that we have been going, is evaluating and approving onshore wind projects like the Birchall project down in St. John and others that are moving forward. We have done some assessment of the capacity for offshore wind, but given the additional cost and challenge of those kinds of developments, right now we're excited by the potential to develop the onshore wind assets that we have. And sorry, you had asked the question about Nova Scotia. So yes, we're very supportive of New Brunswick playing a role in helping Nova Scotia with the kind of infrastructure they would need should their offshore wind development be successful. Then they'll want to wheel that in and through, and we're on board with the Eastern Energy Partnership to help them do that.
Merci tout le monde. Voici la fin.
Thank you to all of you. This is the end of the update for today.
Concludes today's update.